Fingers torn, scientists mumble. Eyes are worn, shake their heads, say what went wrong. Check the numbers, drag it along. They write their books, shake their hands, watch it sink into the sand. Call it heat, call it tide, call it anything but the crime. The blob don't burn, the blob don't kill, but the core still burn and the waste still spills. The blob don't kill, the blob don't burn, but the fuel still melts and the tides still turn. The blob don't burn, the blob don't kill, but the fish still starve and the bones lie still. The blob don't kill, the blob don't burn, but the truth stays buried where the dead things fill. 10 years gone, still no sound. Birds don't sing when the food runs out. They print their papers, paint the walls. Never once where the bodies fall. They write their books, shake their hands, watch it sink into the sand. Call it heat, call it tide, call it anything but the crime. They're puzzled, they're stunned, they say they don't know. Oh, what a show, what a show. They point to the sky, to the tides and the flow. Where did it go, where did it go? They'll blame the heat, they'll blame the waves, not the course, not the grave. They'll figure it out someday soon.
I'm almost ready. Hang on a minute.
The blob don't burn, the blob don't kill, but the core still burn and the waste still spills. The blob don't kill, the blob don't burn, but the fuel still melts and the tides still turn. The blob don't burn, the blob don't kill, but the fish still starve and the bones lie still. The blob don't kill, the blob don't burn, but the truth stays buried where the dead things fill.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. A bit early tonight. My apologies. It's a lot of work sometimes. Takes the energy of the... My shows normally end at midnight. So if I come out early, better and more energy for tomorrow night. So we're going to poll tonight. Typical poll around here for a decade or more. Should Conference of Parties 30 apologize for blaming carbon, which, you know, more carbon, more plants, more trees, more bushes, more insects, more species, more puppies? Should Conference of Parties 30 apologize for blaming carbon? 'Cause, like, who are these people anyway to do this? Instead of radioactive fallout that's actually behind climate change. Climate change is real. Where are you too, Dana? What are you doing? Don't even ask. Sometimes this equipment is pretty rough on me. It means well. Yeah, they should apologize, and there should be a lot harsher penalties for these people. I mean, it's a total hoax to suggest that carbon is somehow capable of heating an entire planet. What can do it, though, is radioactive fallout for 80 years and never went away. And as every atom, there's 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, every atom is still pulsing energy at the speed of light for millions of years. Even if it's radioactive lead, it's still anthropogenic man-made radioactive lead, and it's still harmful to something because there's millions of species on this planet. It doesn't belong on a planet, and it doesn't belong in space. It's not created by space. We call it man-made because it's man-made. We don't have, in other words, we don't have an autoimmune trigger to defend against it because our body don't know what it is. Or insects or birds or mammals or animals. Artificial intelligence is front and center at conference of parties. I suppose it is. By 2030, it's going to be using up 10% of electricity on the planet. And it ain't going to be for good purposes. I can tell you that right now. And you're running out of time on this planet. This grid is, they'll just steal all the electricity if that's what it takes to get the grid up. They couldn't care less. It's all about them, nothing about you. You shut up. That's their attitude. You're literally just like a bottle cap to these people. They're just weirdos, and that's why they got the job that they got. One of those crises is human-caused climate change. Yeah. Like, carbon doesn't pulse energy at the speed of like 600 feet every second for 300 years, for instance, does it? No. Does it pulse energy at all? No. What does? All that nuclear testing, nuclear dumping, all those nuclear power plants got fuel pools full of reactor cores splitting atoms. So, like, say, let's look at a 30-year lifespan of a nuclear power plant for a second, so you can really, hopefully, be able to appreciate the enormity of what I just said. So, you build a brand new power plant. You take the reactor core, you put it in the containment, it's all sealed in, all pretty. You fire that puppy up. 6 months later, you can sell electricity, because that's probably how long it takes. Meanwhile, a year later, because you got to spend $100 million a year on maintenance, a year later, you got to pull out 1/3 of that reactor core that split atoms to power millions of homes and businesses. Pretty impressive, neat trick, right? So when you take it out, it's still splitting atoms. It's done that by splitting atoms in boiling water. I don't think anybody knows how many atoms it takes to boil a glass of water. I don't think anybody even want to think about how many atoms it takes to power a million homes and businesses. Atoms, physical, anthropogenic, man-made atoms that attack everything with replicating cells. You take that out of the reactor core, 1/3 of it, and put it in a fuel pool. Well, from here on out, that fuel pool is a perpetual machine. All the fuel is still splitting atoms for millions of homes and businesses, but there's no longer a containment. There's a lot of heat generated, and you boil off about 120,000 liters a day, and each liter is going to be insidiously infested with these foreign adversaries, these enemies of everything with replicating cells, aka isotopes, are released into the environment. All day, every day, forever after. And then, so every year you're putting more fuel in. So next year you got double the amount of atoms being split and released directly into the environment with no containment. And this goes on for 30 years. Every year you put another bunch. So every year you're producing more radioactive atoms. And the numbers we're talking about are more than all the grains of sands and all the beaches and all the stars in the observable solar system. Daily. It's way more than that. We don't even have a number for it. And that there's not a single species on the entire planet that has an autoimmune trigger that can defend against it. When it gets in your body, or birds, or mammals, or in animals, or any other species, the atoms in your body is pulsing energy at the speed of light every second, just shy of it. And what that means is it has enough energy to wreck your chromosomes, your cells, your DNA. But some of it is real energetic. Cesium can pulse 600 feet every second. It can pulse through your house and into your bed and radiate you and your loved ones. And does. And it does that throughout the forests and the meadows and the ecosystem. And remember, so when this stuff is, particularly when it's in your body or close to your body, you're wrecking chromosomes and DNA and cells with every pulse of energy. There's not just one of them sitting around hanging out there because of the unmitigated 80 years of releases. You can't contain the fuel pools. There's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide splitting atoms directly into an environment. It's absurd that this could happen and has happened and is happening. It's absurd. That's something that eventually you don't need a nuclear meltdown. You don't need a nuclear war. You don't need a nuclear accident. You just need fuel pools strategically all over the world, splitting atoms directly into your environment with no containment. And the biggest byproduct of irradiated fuel is your worst nightmare. It's called curium. And curium, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. And plutonium kills all the animals in all the experiments. And the reason that's important is because the animal's kidney is 50 times more efficient than yours for removing the radioactive material. So you're 50 times more likely to die than the animals who all died. Plutonium will give you 3 tumors right away. It'll give you lungs, it'll give you bone, lungs, and liver, but the majority of the victims will die in a few years from bone tumors and their side effects. The United States hit with extremely large peaks of Fukushima radioactive material, a significant amount of plutonium released for months. Measured globally and blanketed the entire northern hemisphere. Blanketed. It was measured globally. This is a 20-day model from TEPCO. And it blanketed Canada and United States and Mexico. It blanketed plutonium. Not tritium, which is what, since August of 2023, has been just literally driven down everybody's throat. Another is disinformation. So artificial intelligence in front of the center. Go back to that story because we were just kind of meandering off in the left and right lanes. One of those crises is human-caused climate change, aka anthropogenic man-made radioactive fallout. Climate change is real, but it's 80 years of unmitigated nuclear releases into the biosphere and the ecosystem and the oceans and the fresh water, much of which has been focused on climate change. Yeah, the big stick. Well, you got 4 sticks. I'll show you them coming up later. You have Wallace Brocker, the father of global warming. You have Miles Allen, the father of net zero. You have BP Oil, carbon footprint campaign. And you have James Hansen for climate change. That's the 4 studies they're using to whoop your entire planet. And you have now run out of time. Artificial intelligence is way advanced than most people even can believe, and is being utilized, weaponized, and this is at an accelerated pace. So in 1 year's time, a lot of your freedom and liberties will be gone like the gray whales. They'll be gone next migration for sure. They were emaciated last migration. They're emaciated this migration. They can't last much longer. Bones and skeletons from the shoreline, they're not going to last much longer. And the other whales are right behind them. So, I mean, this is crazy. They never stopped growing food in half the country. Because the 14 prefectures were banned by 55 countries for a decade, which doesn't make sense. Why would you lift a ban? You still got the millions of one-ton pigs. Only 3% of the land where you picked up the topsoil, which was idiotic to even suggest you could decontaminate a country like that. Every time the forest wind goes through it, everything is covered immediately and forever, over and over and over. Radioactive pollen. 30 million one-ton bags they admit to. Begrudgingly. If you haven't got the information, they won't admit to it. Let's put it that way. Farmers growing food right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation in nuclear wasteland. They're not even wearing their idiotic paper suit, which means it's for sale. This is just more evidence. We have overwhelming evidence. We have disgusting evidence. And they're shipping that stuff worldwide. And your body's reaction to that is, it's like a 50-pound bag of cancer is what you're eating. And all the illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries that manifest before the cancer. And there's a lot of them. Well, there has been some consideration of AI addressing climate change. AI is one of those dirty industries on the planet on top of that. Conference of Parties 30 is, it has to go. We can't have a future. And we're going to lose it in about a year or two. COP30 is the first conference where AI has been formally integrated as a center theme in the conference agenda. So this conference of parties 30, someone there decided they were going to delete me. Basically, a few days ago I got deleted from the internet. Only the bad stuff is out there, what they call, that they cooked up about me. Well, there has been some considerations of AI in addressing climate change. It's the first conference where AI has been formally integrated as a central theme. Yeah, so is the nuclear industry. The IAEA is down there. World Nuclear Associations are down there. All the lobbyists are down there. They don't show up anywhere in the media. That's so weird, eh? I've never seen that before. They shouldn't be there. They weren't there until 2 years ago. High-level event, Global Initiative for Information Integrity, climate change. Who are these chicken eggs that are now, their facts, nobody else, no debate. So they got 4 papers, and they've never been peer-reviewed. Right, you got Wallace Brocker, the father of global warming, Miles Allen, the father of net zero. These are chicken eggs on top of that. Got cushy little jobs as professors at some weird little obscure university. You got BP Oil, a smear campaign against the population. That's where carbon footprint came from. And you got the perpetually disaster machine known as James Hansen for climate change. That's the 4 papers they're using to justify the madness. I mean, this is murder. Growing food in nuclear wasteland and shipping it worldwide, this is murder. This is global genocide. You're talking about £1 billion out of each prefecture. Wake up. Wake the frig up, for goodness sakes. EU grapples. Carbon is not your solution. Carbon is your solution. More carbon, the more birds, more plants, more insects, more fruits, the more vegetables, the more whales, more birds. They're running out of birds. EU grapples with carbon levy pushback. So this unelected, self-appointed organization known as Ugly Nations and the EU, the evil nation, climate commissioner, look at him. Jesus Christ. Excuse the language. What kind of chicken neck is that? One has proposed a roadmap for a global transition away from fossil fuels, now backed by more than 80 nations. So what? These are all military-industrial complex nations. One is a proposed roadmap for a global transition away. They got 30 years not accomplishing anything because it's not about that. It's about a big cocktail party and where they loot the taxpayers of the 195 countries that were involuntarily taken over by them. They've taken over all key governments, universities, medias. And how the world will work towards the broader goal of mobilizing $1.3 trillion in climate finance. And they're going to promote nuclear on top of that, which caused this all in the first place. Right, all the supercell cyclones, supercell typhoons, supercell hurricanes are post-nuclear industry. And post-Fukushima, this has picked up its pace way too quick, way too much. Jamaica was, among many places, are getting, storms coming ashore where the infrastructure is not designed for that. They're Category 5 tornadoes that are 400 miles friggin' wide, over and over post-Fukushima, because of the effects that it had on the ocean, right? 1 trillion pipeline unlocked as Conference of Parties 30, constipated party, thank goodness, targets global power grid crisis. Yeah, because the data centers are sucking up the AI centers are sucking up all the electricity in everybody's country. Right, they need a massive amount in each country to do what they got up their sleeves, their creepy little sleeves. I got a doozy for you tonight. I got you don't want to miss show for you tonight. Far beyond the climate crisis, Conference of Party 30 must seek to build a new model of civilization. Elon Musk is out there saying just let everybody in jail and give them a robot to keep an eye on them so they don't reoffend. What do you think that means? You can go down to Ukraine. There's lots of jobs down there. You get a gun and you get to shoot guns and stuff like that. And eventually a drone with a bomb attached to it will chase you around in a field or the woods and blow you up when it catches you. It'll play with you and toy with you for a bit first off. You're like, oh, well, I might as well give up. Usually people just they shoot all the bullets and they got no bullets left and it's just like, oh, crap. And the drone goes, bang! Pop! Another one gone. It's like going around popping balloons except you're full of bones and muscles and blood. Far beyond the climate crisis. I mean, this is how long before they're going to use that technology on us? When should we take our drones and start chasing the people that are building these things? At what point? Everybody should get a drone so they can do that. Because eventually you're going to wish you had them. Far beyond the climate crisis, Conference of Party 30 must seek to build a new model of civilization. In other words, you'll do whatever we tell you, and we already control your country for 80 years. We're just going to go for broke. Now, we are your new gods. And the life extension technology they got gives them the confidence, right? Since 6th of November 2025, Beelum has become the center of attention for the entire planet. Well, if that was true, how come I only got 8 people on my show? I'm probably the only blogger on the planet out there doing a live show about it. The entire planet. Eat doggy. Let's keep her rolling here. For about 2 weeks. I doubt highly anybody gives a shit. Most people couldn't care less. Right, they make a big bunch of noise where they're to drag out all the vulnerable people. Wave their little flags. Save our planet. When they should be with torches and pitchforks waiting for you to come out for lunch. The entire planet for 2 weeks. But what is at stake? It goes far beyond the climate crisis. You better believe it. They're announcing now a takeover of your entire planet because they know the gig is up really soon. They got an extinction event playing out under everybody's noses. Everybody's pretending it's not happening. Oh, we never had any migratory birds. Dave, what are you talking about? Never was that many whales. Yeah, they were always skinny. You can always see their rib cages sticking out. It's a new trend. They're on a diet. They only eat sterilized water and pieces of plastic because that's what's left out there. What is at stake goes far beyond the climate crisis. It's about building a new model of civilization. Don't keep saying that. The hell is wrong with you? Stop saying that shit. The new model of civilization should exclude you. You pieces of shit that are doing this, you chicken necks. You little teacher's pets. You little bizarre little fantasies. Trade tensions overshadow climate goals. Trade tensions, climate goals. As carbon taxes fuels divides. Carbon tax. Carbon. You know, the stuff that everything's made of. You don't got no carbon, you look like the moon. Carbon's your friend, right? Sometimes I wonder, why don't I just play a video? I move stuff around too much. Let me see if I can find it here. I know I put everything in a folder, make it easier for me. Now I can't find anything. It's because of the background, I think. Let me try one more trick here. We'll get there. I was just going to try to change my... Guess I shouldn't touch anything, because you know how it is. We'll come back to that. Hey, I can't understand why I can't see that particular folder. Yeah, let me do this. Set as desktop background. Yeah, that should help me. Just give me a second. Bear with me. Okay. I'll bring it up for you. I think what I want is right here. Oh yeah, here we go. I'm going to start off with just two of them I want to play. I might have to jump on the audio right away.
Panelists, what percent of our atmosphere is CO2?
Repeat that question.
What percent of our atmosphere is CO2?
I'll turn it up for you. My apologies here. So he's going to ask what percentage of the atmosphere is CO2?
Panelists, what percent of our atmosphere is CO2?
Repeat that question.
What percent of our atmosphere is CO2, carbon dioxide?
I'll bite 5%.
5?
We'll go 7. That's my favorite number.
I'll see their 5 and suggest that we know that transportation causes 49% of CO2, so that's why we're all working on energy transition.
All right. So what number do you think it is?
5.
5. Do you have one, Mr. Boyd?
So we got a 5, 7, 8. I'm going to get the high end.
All right. The answer is 0.04%. Not 1%, not half of a percent. It's 0.04%. It's gone up from 0.03 over the last couple of years.
I'm going to stop it.
This is what we're being all controlled.
Because crap, I got the wrong video. I got some idiot music. So, let me go back for 1 second. It's 0.04% of the atmosphere is CO2. And here's the people in charge of climate change. And said she's actually in charge of the CO2 and carbon and everything. Thought it was absurd numbers, right? That's okay. So there's one more video that you should consider about carbon. This is a study done by 5th grade kids. And hopefully get the music off, yeah. So they just took plants for 42 days. And 450 counts per minute and 1,270 counts per minute on the right-hand side. So the more carbon, they do this in greenhouses all the time, right? Carbon is how the planet works. Without carbon, we can't exist. Radioactive fallout, though, that heats the planet. You got invisible plumes covering the whole planet, pulsing energy at the speed of light every second, non-stop releases from 1,000 fuel pools, nuclear dumps and accidents. So the difference is dramatic with a bit more carbon, right? There's nothing sophisticated. They were given the same water, blah, blah, blah. 38% increase for leaf. 9% increase at harvest for weight, 35 days. 44% increase. Wow, on biomass. So what would you do? More carbon or less carbon? Not a really big, difficult question now, is it? Let me turn that back a bit. Global climate goals. Like, if you want to stop and try to reverse it and deal with it, and you don't want to make it worse, you got to stop the nuclear industry from releasing directly into the environment from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. You got to try to get back the stuff you dumped in the ocean at some point. At some point, that's what you're going to go do. At the UN Climate Summit. Well, we're having a climate summit right here. But we're not allowed on the internet. We're not allowed to share my video. You're not allowed to give me any likes. I got 11 likes, 14 votes on a story I've been doing for a decade. It's just evil to do that to people. And you're acknowledging you lost, right? You can't beat the narrative. Summit is very right. Pope Leo seen channeling Greta Thunberg. So because the kid is harmless, doesn't have a clue, was a perfect little pet, unfortunately. Right, she has money and fame, and that's good enough. Not looking for the truth. So she gets it all. She's a perfect, useful tool for the industry. Tritium detected near Fukushima below the levels of levels below thresholds. This is South Korea. South Korea says that never happened. What's your version? Do you think it happened? Am I just being a weirdo, making a big... Well, look, that actually happened. Never happened, Dana. The fisher stories never happened, so it's okay to go back to your life and enjoy yourself. Don't worry about anything. Leave us in charge. We'll keep you nice and safe because that never happened, so you got nothing to worry about, Dana. Sure, Chicken Nick. Want to go for coffee? No, a dark alley. You piece of shit. That's like a Medusa over there, Reactor 3. Got a rather good show tonight. I don't get a lot of good shows anymore. Industry's they're terrible people. So tritium was detected near Fukushima. Wow, that blows my mind. Let me see something. Hang on. I forgot the little... I mean, they picked up 60 million one-ton or 30 million one-ton bags, but there was only tritium. The bags don't... I've never seen a single study of tritium covering the planet or anything else. Everything is tritiated. They tritiated all the water on the bloody planet. Oh, let's do that. I got a better idea. Yeah, bad fart. What is this? Tritium. Oh, yeah, Korea. The right one. Damn keyboards. All right, here we go. Yeah, South Korea is nuts, eh? South Korea says the fish can't make it there. This administration. They closed 130 schools in South Korea because of radioactive fallout, but they can't find any. Well, that administration could. This administration is like, that don't exist. We're the government. We're good people. We love you. You're our friends. So if nothing got out, how come he picked up 30 million one-ton bags? And how come the food was banned by 55 countries for more than a decade? South Korea, tritium detected near Fukushima. Everything's tritiated. Of course you found tritium. There's nowhere you can go you won't find tritium 3H now, which is man-made. There is tritium from space, but that's different. This is man-made. That's Mother Nature. And they do that. They conflate them just to confuse the daylight set of the population. It works excellent. Fukushima nuclear report was so shocking they decided to treat it like it was tritium. I'm sorry, as if it didn't exist, rather. Wrap your mind around that statement, because there's a whole lot of them coming behind it. Tritium detected 13 times. What? On a tritiated planet. They're averaging 19 atoms a liter, Dana, and below 700, which is the suspension limit, because it's safe. Well, it's not safe. Like, you make nuclear weapons out of it. How can it be safe? It's anthropogenic, man-made, and you can't contain it, so you just said, hey, it's safe, have a nice day. Stupid. You just make up laws, and you use the Secrecy Act to hide behind who done it. Because it's nuclear, everything got to be top secret. Top secret nuclear. They should call nuclear plants top secret nuclear plant. La Hague in France has 500 security guards. Because it's like a banana, right? Very high concentrations of hot particles in the Pacific, including plutonium and americium. Oh, you have no idea. Actually, that's kind of important because we brought that up twice already. You're snaking back in there. I forgot to plug the keyboards into the other one. That's what it is. Oh, yeah, right. My apologies. My apologies. So very high concentrations of hot particles in the Pacific Northwest. A very high concentration. Think about what that word means, very high concentration. They're talking about radioactive fallout. 5,500 miles away, 7,500 miles away in just a short period of time. And the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod, unfortunately, is worse. It's called curium. It's a curium isotope. But, as Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico, they're the major byproduct of the radiated fuel rod. Just forget about the alpha. Forget that. That actually doesn't matter. What matters is curium. And curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium isotopes. Okay, that's important. Toxicity of inhaled plutonium dioxide, beagle dogs and beagle puppies. One of the many studies Loveless Respiratory Research in New Mexico done, which is the U.S. Navy Institute. So death from radiation in all of the 144 dogs started 1.5 and finished 5.4 years later. Tumors of the lungs, the skeleton, and the liver occurred beginning at about 3 years after exposure. So 3 different tumors. Bone tumors in 93 dogs out of the 144 dogs were the most common cause of death. Lung tumors in 46 dogs were the second. You seen a lot of people with lung tumors? Bone tumors? Huh. Quite the coincidence. We buried the whole planet in it. Nah, it couldn't be. Had to be from your tobacco when you were young, maybe. That's what it was. And so tumors in the three organs often occurred in the same animal, competing causes of death, and that the studies suggest similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans accidentally exposed. And so the big whoop about that would be is that the animal kidney is 50 times more efficient than the humans at removing plutonium and other radioactive isotopes. And so you're 50 times more likely to die than all the dogs that died every time from the plutonium. And don't forget that the biggest byproduct is curium isotopes. Curium isotopes are the major byproduct. Not cesium, not iodine. I wish it was. And they're really bad. I'm saying they're good. Anything would be better than curium because curium isotopes needs lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium-239. But it doesn't stop there, unfortunately. The nuclear industry has all kinds of ways to get you, and they'll get you one way or another. Right now, they got all 8 million species and us. So they're looking to tighten up the grid because we're bye-bye time in the near future. And there's another thing about radiation studies that I covered years and years ago. We covered a lot. I have no idea where it's to right now. I got an idea, which was the amount that I have aggregated over all this time is. So it turns out that frequencies, like radio waves, can excite isotopes. It's one of the little tricks they know very well. So like your cell phone towers could be triggering health effects in certain ranges just by certain frequencies on purpose because, they fed them Fukushima rice or they live close to a nuclear power plant or they ship it in from nuclear power plants and from the farmlands. They're all surrounded by farmland worldwide. Radiation levels in the U.S. West Coast spiked 1 million times normal in Canada, United States. Yeah, but nothing showed up then. It was like a banana. Xenon was 133% above detection levels. But they found tritium. Stop trying to change the subject, Dana. Okay, that don't matter, right? So United Nations has to silence me because tritium doesn't work. IAEA, ERPA, Unclear, the IPRC, UN, And right now they want all eyes on them. Nobody else is allowed to see anybody. No narratives allowed worldwide. We are the control grid. The whole world order, as George Bush called them. So 1 million times normal actually meant a awful amount, and it's forever. It pulses energy 600 feet every second for 300 years. So 1 million to 10 million atoms, or times, pre-Fukushima numbers. So it could be 20, 30 million atoms per cubic meter of air. Buried your whole planet. That model's only 8 days. In 20 days, the model shows the whole planet buried. But you can't have one without all the other. So that's why I show you stuff like this. Radioactive Xenon-133 in Washington. Was 450 times above detection levels after Fukushima. Was 450,000 times above detection levels after Fukushima. Yeah, Danny, they found tritium. They did it. They found it. It's okay, though. It's safe. That's not safe. Oh, baby, that's not safe. So, it's so bad, the Japan Times column, who now says it never happened, as the public possibly worldwide sickens over time because of Fukushima. Does that give you some confidence or what? Nothing got out on any tritium. That's because everything is tritiated now because of the radioactive fallout has tritiated everything. When it gets in the waters, it gets what you call tritiated. Just hang on a second there now. They're hard on you. That's what they are. I'll show you that cesium-137 model. This is the French government, by the way. I'm sorry, not a model, it was a spike. The French government, the IRS, and experts on nuclear radiation risk under the Ministries of Defense, the Environment, the Industry, the Research. Levels increased. This is not a projection. This is not a conjecture. This is not an opinion. Levels increased 1 million to 10 million times after Fukushima. But that model that you're showing the screen capture of is to the 18th. That's 7 days later. Here's the actual whole model. It's based on 31 days. Think of a snowstorm coming out of a country where the snow never melts, never goes away, and it never stops snowing. And that when you get up to almost 20 days, here it is, 20 days. When you get to 20 days, the whole planet is buried in a snowstorm, and the snow never goes away for millions of years and never stops snowing. It might as well be, because that's the same effect you're going to have with radiation, but you can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it or perceive it. Circumference of Parties 30 apologized for blaming carbon instead of radioactive fallout that is behind climate change. Do you get now why I put that poll up there? They're the bad guy. I'm not the bad guy. Just because I'm censored, just because I don't actually exist. Oh, I got 11 people, bless your hearts. And if you don't find me, you'll never hear any of these narratives. That's terrifying. This model is based on 31 days. This not model, but this increase, this documentation by the French government. And the only time is cesium-137. So in that same plume, there's going to be all the other isotopes, right? The xenon, of course, you're going to have uranium, plutonium, americium. The biggest byproduct, don't forget, the biggest byproduct is not cesium, it's curium isotopes, which needs lead shielding 20 times thicker. And it's out there forever, pulsing energy at the speed light. Carbon doesn't do that. Carbon is more plants, carbon is more trees, carbon is more puppies. And if you say that, you are a lawyer. But that's what the science, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just saying what science says. No, you're a lawyer. You can only say what United Nations says you can say. Everything else must be banished. According to the analysts of samples collected from 10 locations, 3 kilometers, 4 locations within 10 kilometers. These people are insane. Tritium was detected 13 times. This is a South Korean public relations firm because they're promoting small modular reactors that don't even exist. Up to 1 billion atoms a kilogram of iodine near the reactors. You can't have that without multiple worse than that. You can have 31 times more iodine-129 with a 15 million year half-life. Researchers found cesium-137 over 50 million times the normal levels. That's South Korea, though. And the current administration will cut your throat for an isotope. TEPCO to begin coating the seafloor with cement mixtures. The reactors blew up. I mean, the tsunami was buried in heavy particulate radioactive fallout that is fuel particulates. The fuel particulates are brutal because they're splitting atoms forever. Idiots to put this technology on our planet. And the International Atomic Energy Agency is the biggest proliferator of the misrepresenting the facts. Let me give you an example. Like, it's hard because most people, if you don't find me, you'll never get exposed to anything on this particular topic, unfortunately. No one's going to say, hey, wait a second. Bear with me. So, you got reactors exploding, ejected the fuel pools and reactor cores right out of the building. Right, there's a serious side effect from that. It melts your organs when you go near it. Here's the media's.
What I'm standing is on top of what used to be.
So what used to be, this is Rupert Winfield Hayes in the BBC, the biggest media in Europe, saying he's 150 feet above the stump.
reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
There's just a few of them.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
These people are insane, pretending they're in a building that don't exist. Is that not the definition of insanity? Why do you think they're doing that? It's called climate change. It's a pulse event that wiped out a huge percentage of the species in the first year. The International Atomic Degenerate Agency explained that after inspecting Tokyo, which is not a decommissioned authority, they found no abnormalities in discharge equipment. No abnormalities in the here's the discharge equipment right there, look. Isn't that pretty? The small modular reactors here in Canada are 24-story buildings. This is the picture they sold people. And they're still doing it. That was from a few weeks ago. This is the actual size of the small modular reactor, the boiling water reactor X300. The Canadians are going to build. It's a 24-story building. It's 50 feet taller. 50 feet taller than Fukushima's reactors. Well, their whole reactor, not the stumps. It's pretty interesting how we don't see the urgency or the question. We don't see anybody asking questions of why. All the media pretended that they were at the top of the building worldwide, or they just ran those stories. So we're in for a world of hurt because this industry has nothing but contempt. Absolute contempt. For everybody on the planet. They got nothing but contempt for us. Nothing but the worst intentions. They really don't like us. But yet they want us to applaud them for their jobs, and they want us to visit their websites and read their fake stories. And international crazy industry explained that after inspecting Tokyo, they found no abnormalities in the discharge equipment. You're not a regulatory agency. You should shut your fucking pie hole. You lying sacks of shit. Confirmed that the tritium monitoring results in the water near Fukushima were below the threshold of determining abnormalities. How about this headline here? Radioactive plankton are so heavily contaminated the food chain fears continuously carried southward from Fukushima. High concentrations of radioactive cesium, and you can't just have cesium in the plankton. The company has been treating the water using advanced liquid processing systems, ELPS. Right? That always ticks me off every time I hear that nonsense. It began on August 24th, 2023. Really? Well, I thought it began 5 days later when the reactors blew up. The Fisher story is nothing got out. It was all in 1,000 tanks, and it was equal to 3 grams of sugar. That was another South Korean professor of nuclear and quantum engineering's assertion. They're lunatics, eh? And they've been at it for 80 years, never been held accountable a single time. Now they're just belligerent. They don't own this planet. We own this planet. This is their planet. They don't have a right, and they ain't going to be getting away with it. Toyota investigates bioethanol productions in Fukushima, Okuma town. Really? Toyota's in Okuma? That's how much leverage the nuclear industry actually has. It's absurd. As part of its efforts to achieve carbon neutrality. Like the ultimate in they're pretending they're on top of a billion that don't exist. They're saying carbon is the problem when it's actually the nuclear industry. And so to put psychological deception to its most absurd, They put their facilities in a nuclear wasteland. No, it can't be bad. Look, we're here. It's carbon. It's not nuclear, it's carbon. If it was nuclear, we wouldn't have our business in a coma. They got a good argument. Not a real one, but it's a pretty darn good one. It's pretty impressive. That's how crazy the chicken necks are, see? When there's no... They come up with any story, feel like... Somebody probably said, that's crazy, you can't say that. They're like, no, we're the nuclear industry, say whatever we want. They put it out there. I'm the boss. Come on, let's go. I'm paying for supper. I'm the boss. Toyota is conducting research on fuel 3 kilometers away from ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns to convince everybody that it's safe. People don't even, a few people were like workers who are living there. The majority of the people that lived there before the accident haven't went back because they're not all stupid. Thank goodness. This initiative symbolizes both the region's recovery. Really, I heard the nuclear meltdown will be going on for thousands of years. How are you going to recover? How can you call it a recovery? You can't have a, like, people are insane. You have no concept of what science actually is. You're the weirdest humans imaginable. You look like us, but you have none of the attributes. In November 2024, a major facility, the Research Association of Biomass Innovation for Next Generation and you like this, automobile fuels, and they're going to be using rice straw from a nuclear wasteland, because there's lots of rice growing there, so there's lots of rice straw. And then they want to send it all over the world so people can burn the radiation back out the exhaust and poison something later. It was launched in Fukushima. This collaborative project brings together leading companies from the mobility, electronics, precision machinery, and other sectors to explore alternative fuels. Globally, bioethanol is typically produced from feedstock like corn, sugar cane, and rice straws. However, you're talking about food in a nuclear wasteland, for goodness sakes, and they're talking about NAMI. So I'm going to give you a bunch of references of NAMIs, and there's a bunch of stories I have never used here before we're going to bring in, because I'm always collecting, but I don't always get to use it. Unfortunately, I got to get my shit together, clearly. Excuse the French-Canadian part of my family. However, at the Fukushima facility, a type of grass sourced from nearby nuclear wasteland, abandoned nuclear wasteland, NAMI, is 7 kilometers, the central NAMI, to the nuclear disease site itself. Is being used as a primary feedstock. This is a picture of NAMI, by the way. So the feed is grown on that farmland right alongside the thousands and thousands. It's just, what you should do is say, Dana photoshopped this all up because he's pretty freaking talented, but it's simply not true. And go back to sleep if you can. Run now while you can. That's why United Nations, I'm showing up at their meeting next year. Great big placards. And we're gonna put our goose in their walk from here on out. Part of Fukushima NAMI to exit evacuation orders March 31st. So, 2023. Sorry. I clicked down here. Yeah. So this was January, February, March the 1st, 2023. So part of NAMI to exit evacuation orders, part of it. Not a very big part on top of that. The rest of it is still off limits. A no-go zone, nuclear wasteland. We call them nuclear wastelands. Nuclear wasteland, no-go zone. I can't tell the difference except one kills you and the other one you get a ticket. Part of Fukushima NAMI. NAMI and Fukushima Prefecture, others, agreed Wednesday to lift on March the 31st evacuation orders for part of the town. So you got a nuclear wasteland where everybody ran away, thank goodness. Well, they don't want, they evacuated, but a lot of them didn't get evacuated until too late. But the place is close by. They had to evacuate them because you wouldn't be able to explain away a bunch of dead people in their homes. You can't blame that on an earthquake, right? Well, the house wasn't damaged, but they died from the earthquake, Dana. I said, oh. Because that's what they'll do. That's how lunatic this industry actually is. It's like a big hive of stupids, and eventually accomplish a few things. Not a nuclear renaissance or anything like that, of course. A genocide, omnicide maybe, but part of the town. In 3 reconstruction-based districts, accounting for 3% of the town's total area, so 3% of a nuclear wasteland, which is still, well, that 3% is a nuclear wasteland. You can't exclude 3% or 10% or 15% of a community because the radiation is airborne. It penetrates everything. Even though that's what they've done, they're like, you can't cross the street. don't do that. Don't. The dog goes, wave goodbye. You're not coming back. And Timmy goes to get the ball. He's got to stay there. He can't come back. It's a nuclear wasteland. It'll make you guys sick, so you're going to have to put Timmy down, I guess. It accounts for about 3% of the town's total area. Like, reading these stories, you'd think you're in a loony bin. You think, this is not real. Like, this, no one wrote this. Nobody's that freaking lunatic to do this. There's no industry, particularly nuclear industry, heavily regulated industry on the entire planet, is the most wicked and sadistic and perpetually criminal industry in human history. They're like, what's the worst thing we can do? Okay, well, let's do that. And they do it everywhere, and they're really good at it, unfortunately, and that's not good for 8 million species. Because there's nothing on the planet with an autoimmune trigger can defend against this nightmare. The meltdown of Tokyo Electric Power Company Holding Corporation / corporate personhood nuclear plant in March 2011 prompted the town to evacuate, and they even put the orders were lifted in some areas in 2017. We covered it as it happened, every one of them. 80% of the town remains a nuclear wasteland. Well, I'll go along with their version. Difficult to return zone. Nuclear wasteland. Of 80% is nuclear wasteland, 100% is nuclear wasteland. This stuff is airborne constantly. It's liberated back into the environment. There's, just the cesium-137 is pulsing energy 600 feet every second. It's hard to comprehend how that translates into great harm. Is that it wrecks the chromosomes, the DNA in the cells of every species. So if it's in your body attacks with white blood cells, the source, and the damage that it creates every second. It tries to repair the damage, or the birds or mammals are in them, whales, whatever, the species, and humans that have the same effect, anthropogenic man-made radiation. Your body tries to repair the damage as is happening with white blood cells. Every white blood cell you displace in a red blood cell, and the red blood cell carries oxygen nutrition. So there's an instant cause and effect, and it's permanent. It's in your body's pulsing energy in every direction, so it's wrecking chromosomes and cells and DNAs, permanent lesions to your organs. And what that translates into is your body tries to repair it every minute, can't keep up with that, and has to attack the source. Eventually it builds a tumor around it, or what they call things considered as a sarcophagus because it's a foreign object, but it's one that pulses energy. If the birds and mammals and animals get carbon, they get bigger, they get stronger, they get more hair on their back or feathers on their wings, or they lay more eggs. If you take carbon away, they don't do any of that. If you put nuclear in their environment, you sterilize them in increments over decades. Guess what's happening? Fukushima was a pulse event, by the way. You had 36 reactor cores disappeared in 5 days. And you're breathing it in worldwide, every species. 80% of the town is a difficult to return zone. The whole country is a difficult to return to. Part of Fukushima NAMI to exit evacuation orders March the 31st. I digress sometimes. This is NAMI picture right there, by the way. Here's another NAMI story. A forest fire at their one-ton bag sites. It wasn't in the bags yet, apparently. See the firefighters? Do you think they know what they're doing? Do you think they even know anything about nuclear? If I was there, I'd be running. You would see the back of my head because I'd be running. I wouldn't be stood up there. I'd be run. These are death plumes. This was 100,000 atoms per kilogram minimum criteria to fill up, to pick up. Of course, the Geiger counters you're using are just abysmal. They're not going to give them real equipment because they'll run away. They'll drop the Geiger counter and run away. Fire at the Nami nuclear waste site. What else do you need to know about that? Like the firefighters, look at them. They're oh, it's just a fire. We'll get it. We'll get it. Don't run away with it. It's all good. It's just fire. Stop being so silly. They know nothing about nuclear radiation. They know nothing. They're in a nuclear wasteland. And they stood up there. How's it going, George? Good, but gotta wash my clothes tonight. It's pretty dirty. The fire burned for 5 hours on March the 5th before the firefighters, not the nuclear industry, not the nuclear experts, not the big shot nuclear scientists, the physicists, not TEPCO. I just said it, local fire department. But it's a nuclear wasteland. Let's let them go in there. You got to go in there. You got to put out the fire. We got to fill up those bags. That's where the money's to. We got to fill up that bag. Doubts about the impartiality and practice used by Fukushima Health Survey has caused many to distrust the project sponsored by the prefecture government. Well, I mean, that's a pretty polite way to put it. No one trusted the government in Japan, thank goodness, but it's not going to help you because the evil doesn't care. No information about radiation levels or how much radiation was released in the fire was available at this time. Well, the material they're picking up is the criteria is 100,000 atoms of gamma per kilogram. That's the minimum number per kilogram, or don't go in the bags. But they're collecting it and bringing it to a central site, and then putting it in bags, transferred it to bags. So this is the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants who don't speak the language. And the firefighters, if you knew anything about radiation, they wouldn't be there, would they? NAMI to conduct independent radiation exposure exams, which is the same nuclear wasteland. And there was a big controversy about this. Hirosaki University had begun an exposure dose reconstruction study in 2011, but was pressured by Fukushima prefecture government to terminate the study. We have quite a few reports of that, actually. The prefectural government, decided that the study might fuel concern among the residents. Really, in a no-go zone nuclear wasteland. It can get worse. Well, they won't come back then. We got to get them back there. It's nuclear industry. We can't go getting black eyes and fat lips. Yeah, they're going to die from it, but the nuclear industry looks better that way. The results of that study showed levels considerably higher than the official government numbers and found certain people had quite high thyroid doses. I'm not laughing. That's the gallows laugh. Because they like focusing on the thyroid, which is not a terrible thing, but that's because they're looking for gamma. And so that thyroids are catastrophic numbers. 13,646 out of 38,200 children had thyroid tumors of 2 centimeters or more. And their thyroid gland is only 2 centimeters, like an adult's is 3 by 5 centimeters. A child's is about 2 centimeters. And the child is developing, the small animals, mammals, and everything, the babies are all developing, right? They need the hormones, but the thyroid is not designed to operate on anthropogenic man-made hormones, but they mimic your natural hormones. So it's the most insidious technology in human history. And that the anthropogenic man-made atoms are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. But they're pulsing energy, they're radiating it. They're still producing the hormones, but they're radioactive, anthropogenic, man-made hormones. And then, so if you're talking about that's happening, and it is, and we got the numbers for it, used to be 1 in a million. Right now it's 356,000 of a million if you scale it up. There's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, there's adrenaline. The first studies are autism, Down syndrome, dementia. Alzheimer's is notorious. latecomer to the party, but it will show up in populations. And so the child, if he's getting big doses and tumors like I'm talking about, and is documented, then you can be guaranteed that their skeleton is going to be producing radioactive stem cells for their developing and the rest of their lives. That's going to be true for all the species, not just for the kids or for humans. All of this is immediately, we're 50 times more vulnerable than the animals, for goodness sakes. Right, they're 50 times better at filtering it out than we are. Strontium-90 filter system started at Fukushima Daiichi 2014. Well, it didn't. The system will filter water and finish the reverse osmosis process before sending it to the Alp systems. Like, this is radiation, fuel. Osmosis doesn't work. You have to contain everything. You can't let anything go. The minimum is going to be incredibly tritiated water for 120 years. But you can't filter water. It's radioactive sludge. Now, the practice is at the nuclear sites is to evaporate the water. This is what makes the industry incredibly evil. And that every nuclear plant, by the way, except for a few, are surrounded by farms as far as you can see. This is not a coincidence. 100% agenda. The entire industry now, they're so confident with AI that they're not even trying to hide their evilness anymore. It's very concerning. Water was above 1 sievert per hour, like per liter was over 2.2 sieverts just of beta that was in the tanks. The filter is so radioactive after a couple of minutes, you can't get back in the building. You can never change the filter again. You can never get in proximity to the filter again. Where's the videos of them changing filters? Where's the evidence they contain the radiation? If you fill up the tanks with just that beta per liter that they acknowledge, you're going to have 1.4 million sieverts. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. Even if the tank was 6 feet thick lead, it still won't shield. That kind of radiation is not going to shield. And another proof that the tanks were freshwater or empty is they're taking tanks apart. Like you're pouring water over a nuclear meltdown, and then you're sucking that up and putting it through a filter, are you? So you're going to have a nuclear meltdown in the filter, a nuclear meltdown in the tank that was holding it. You're going to have a meltdown in pinch points on the hoses and lines. You can never step over the lines that brings the hoses to the alleged ELP system. I'll show you pictures of it in a second. So August 2014, the disaster site has struggled with water decontamination for years. Just announced recently they think they finally have the system operational, but it wasn't. Allegedly, they turned it on in 2015, not 14. This story is 2014. So this is 2013 when they released these photos. They were building the ELP systems back then. They're far from finished. And how do you filter water you pour over? Because you're going to get gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas in the filter. You're going to have a meltdown. Right? The material is going to act as a neutron reflector. That's going to increase the capacity for it to have a criticality event in the filters at the bottoms of the tanks. Like, this doesn't need oxygen to combust and stay lit at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. It doesn't need oxygen, right? That's one of the nightmarish attributes. ELP's decontamination system under construction. That was 2013. So they didn't build nothing for the first couple of years. So they had no water filtration. There was no Siri system, no Arriva systems. There was no Curry system. Just bear with me, please. There we go. See if I can do a bit better. It's kind of important. So I just want to show that it is truly a lie, what they're telling you. I just don't want to leave that hanging. I don't want to leave that hanging. Just 1 second, bear with me. I'm almost ready. Are you ready? I'm almost ready. Big Bad. I know, like, telling the truth is simple, right? It's not, it doesn't take to be a genius to tell the truth. You might have to be a bit of one to learn it, but then you don't have to be a genius to tell it forever after. Let me put that up there so I can find it next time without this routine. Here we go. This is the BBC Rupert Winfield Hayes. Now, this is the same Rupert Winfield Hayes said he was on top of Reactor 4 in a previous video. I know. This is 2013. He's talking about the 1,000 tanks. TEPCO is going to tell you they have no control over the water. I'm going to fix the audio as we fire up this madness. This is quite telling. They're talking about a giant aquifer underneath the reactor, and that's what they put in the 1,000 tanks.
Fukushima plant sits smack in the middle of an underground aquifer.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Deep beneath the ground, the site is rapidly being overwhelmed by water. Beneath the surface, water flows downhill and into the basement of the damaged reactor buildings. There it is contaminated with high levels of radiation. To stop the groundwater flowing on into the nearby ocean, engineers are building an underground barrier. But that is causing the groundwater level to rapidly rise. It's now so high the water will soon reach the surface. Then it will start flowing overground into the sea. This week, the company that owns Fukushima, TEPCO, made this disturbing admission.
We understand that this water discharge is beyond our control, and we do not think the current situation is good.
Outside experts say it's now clear TEPCO is incapable of handling the cleanup at Fukushima. It's time for the Japanese government to step in.
So, what part about that is different from the official story? TEPCO has no control over the water on the site or the site. And here's the BBC interviewing TEPCO and asking the question of why don't the Japanese government step in? Well, they were nationalized right away. Here we go, let's keep going.
The situation is already beyond what TEPCO can handle, he says. If it were possible to take proper measures, they would have done it already. It's not as if TEPCO is refusing to do what they can. They're doing everything they can, but there are no perfect solutions. Even if the government does step in, it's not clear what it can do. The only other solution is to pump out the contaminated groundwater and put it in storage tanks. But after just 2 years, the site is already jammed with more than 1,000 giant tanks. Most of them are already full up. At least 400 tons of new water pours into the site every day, and it's going to continue for years and years. Fukushima's water crisis has only just begun. Rupert Wingfield Hayes, BBC News in Tokyo.
So they had all the tanks full in 2013. So then the question, of course, is if all the tanks were full in 2013 and the ELP system was only started in 2013, where did all the water go after that point? Well, you can fill up the tanks, the 1,000 tanks, which are built for just to lull you into complacency. You can fill them up 6 times a day with each reactor. Each reactor needs 4,500 tons a minute. There's 1,440 minutes a day. That's 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks. That's enough pickup trucks with 1,100 litres in the back of each of them to wrap itself right around the entire planet, bumper to bumper. Has to go through a reactor each day to boil water for 1 million homes and businesses to power them, right? And does that by splitting atoms. How many atoms do you think it takes? Now, that's boiling water part, right? But the pumps themselves are actually powered by 2 external power plants. It's a gas and oil oil and coal or gas and coal or it's got to be coal. Coal is one of the plants. If there's two there, one's coal. So, like, because you're talking about 6 reactors that need 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks each in 24 hours. Now, we're not counting the rest of the site. The site can't run on its own nuclear power. These are massive undertakings just to pump the water. So imagine what everything else is. And then the question is, why not get rid of the nuclear thing and just use the coal, gas, and oil 2 plants just to turn the turbines, and you don't have to have nuclear in that equation. Because it's a genocide machine. You can't contain the releases. It just sits there poisoning every species on the planet. And it poisons the planet for millions of years. Why would you want this technology in your solar system? Well, like, it has to be banned from space because it's a foreign entity. These samples consist of air filters collected March the 15th. Fukushima radiation glass microparticles in Tokyo confirmed other findings. Well, that story, the glass was from the cement, the sand in the cement. It became so radioactive. It's a very high radioactive conversion, right? It's the same thing for the sulfur peroxide, hydrogen buckyballs from the sulfur in the ocean when you've done the nuclear testing. These are super hot particles. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, I should be able to find it. There it is. That study later was 500 trillion atoms per kilogram, significant consequences. 500 trillion atoms per kilogram, highly radioactive glass rained on Tokyo. So that was from the atomizing, aerosoling, ionizing, and radiation of the material itself, and mixing it with fuel particulates, because the fuel particulates are splitting atoms wherever they're to right now, forever and ever and ever. And these were samples collected from air filters. This got downplayed like every study they do. These microparticles were produced during the reaction when the melted fuel came in contact with the sand and the cement, so-called, right? The report also indicated microparticles came from Unit 1 and 3. They're showing a picture of Reactor 1 ejecting the reactor core and 8 reactor cores in the fuel pools right into the buildings. The buildings accumulate around 5 3/4 reactor cores every decade. Through the typical changing of the fuel process, right? And so these would be around 30 plus years old. So, you could say there's 15 reactors up there, but there's no repository. But let's be kind, let's downplay it, let's lowball it, call it 9 reactors total in each building. Each reactor, by the way, is equal to 100 Chernobyls. Chernobyl was a graphite reactor, was a small reactor, was a new reactor. Fukushima reactors are pure uranium, pure plutonium. They're massive. Each reactor core is massive compared to the Chernobyl. Chernobyl didn't have decades of reactor cores at the top of the buildings. These did. And so each one was equal to about 100 Chernobyls. Total, we could be looking at, plus, the small modular, or the small modular, here, bring up the small fuel, or the common spent fuel pool. The common spent fuel pool was pixelated out. I'll bring up some pictures. There was 736 pictures released in 2021. And as far as I know, I'm the only person that covers them, which is terrifying to me. Here we go. Let's do this version. Just give me 1 second. I'll bring up a picture and you'll see what I'm... Okay, here we go. It's weird. So there was 736 pictures released. You go back to my videos, you'll find that and links to TEPCO's site. That's the common spent fuel pool. That's reactor 4 building. That's pixelated. When I zoomed in on these drone shots, I was quite confused because everything was pixelated out. That's the common spent fuel pool. Why would you pixelate that out? And the tsunami is on the same street. It ran right around and piled up all those transport truck containers in the back there, right? So when the tsunami came through, it had to go through this. This has windows down low. And if you don't get water circulating, you'll lose the integrity of the fuel pool, the fuel in the pool. And because it was ingressed with a huge amount of salt water, right, you lost power for 1,200 kilometers of the coastline. This has to have circulating water all the time. Okay, so why was the common spent fuel pool pixelated out at Fukushima? But there's another disturbing... Bear with me. Here we go. This is reactor 6. You're going to see first. That's reactor 6, and that's the turbine building. Why are they completely pixelated out? That's the roof of reactor 5, and that's the roof of the turbine building. Why is that pixelated out? Those pictures were released with no fanfare. So as you head towards the ocean, somewhere right here, this is the dry cask storage. That's down there. It should be in this picture. It's I think it's right up here, if I remember correctly. Just hang on a second. Yeah, that's the dry cask storage right there. And that's reactor 6 up in the top center. So the tsunami came in and the atmospheric pressure crushed the drums. So this is the dry storage. We got pictures showing the water went right through it. Okay, but reactor 6, let me get a zoom back here, that one here. Up in the corner in the center, rather, is reactor 6, and the building closer to the ocean is the turbine building. Why were they pixelated completely out? So why was the common spent fuel pool pixelated out? Why was this pixelated out? And why did they wait 10 years to release that? So they could have had a lot more fuel got out, is what I'm saying, right? Excuse me. Unit 3 is also assumed to have had a secondary steam explosion. Well, there's 4 reactors alongside of each other, all blew up. That's some messed up stuff right there. And so let me just show you a quick picture of reactor 3 and see if that riddle works for you. I'll come back to it right away. That's the problem with trying to do a bloody show. You put together the show, but then these little details, these minutiae of the minutiae, they're so important that, and I'm not even allowed to make a Freudian slip most of the time, because you'll hack that out, string it together, and say I'm an idiot. Watch this, right? Everybody should be allowed to make a Freudian slip. I remember when I was allowed to make a Freudian slip. Nobody chopped it up, made fun of me. Oh, yeah, sorry, reactor 3, right? Blah. Come on, Dana, get your shit together. Here we go. Buildings, number 3, like a tree. Just stop being a goof here. Hang on. Okay, so originally, this was a real live Medusa. That's what that is right there. You go peekaboo around the corner, and the gamma shines and neutron bombardments will flatline you. If you got a pacemaker, it'll flatline you around the corner of the building. So the fuel pools are at the top of the building. The building doesn't even exist. Officially, they got everything at the fuel pool. It's a rotten industry, right? Here's what's left of a 190-foot, 65-meter, 19-story building. This is stump. Right? They put a contraption over it and said they got all the fuel out of it. But did they really? Well, let me show you a picture of the best way to explain this to is send us people who don't mind dying. How many scientists, nuclear scientists, nuclear academics died, I wonder? What are you, stupid or something? None. Here's the media a couple of years ago. Media representatives walking on top of the building over the spent fuel pool. They got all the fuel out of it. Well, all the fuel got out of it on day 4, I think it was. But this is how crazy the industry actually is, right? Their big campaign. We mocked them nonstop for 6 days, and then it just went away like it never even happened. But the official story is now they got everything out of that building's fuel pool, which is at the top of the building. So thank God there's no damage. Thank God you didn't have an explosion. That would have been a disaster. That's a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. Well, let's go down to conference of parties and pretend. And this is another picture of them on top of the building pretending they're looking down on a fuel pool that got ejected right out of the buildings. And go download these pictures yourself, bring it to an engineer, and tell you the same thing. You don't got to be an engineer to know that the top of the building doesn't exist. At least I hope you don't. Maybe I'm out of touch with today's world. I like to think I'm... see that building up there now? Look at this. They're claiming they're taking fuel out of the building in a dry cast. And that backs... So normally the buildings you would back in this special truck, and it can hold 50,000 pounds, and you would lower down these dry casts from the very top of the building. It's a labor-intensive, but it shows you the mental illness of this industry. There is no lie too big to tell us what we know about the nuclear industry for sure. And let me take it one step further because I'm a little weird like this sometimes. Let me go overkill. Dana, I'll go overkill. Go get him, Dana. Take no prisoners. Okay, here we go. I'm a little ridiculous, but we'll flash through all these pictures. You tell me then whether I'm crazy. Well, actually, don't. So this is what they're saying is at the top of that building over to your left. That looks pretty good, George. That's what it actually looks like to your left. Look at this creep for the media. Here's a great picture. This one cracks me up. Everybody got your paper suits on? Yep. Let's go. So, remember that picture? That was 2021 I made that picture. Like I had the two pictures and I was like, one building's 190 foot high. This building, what's left of it is a stump. But here's the official story, look. First batch of Fukushima nuclear power plant fuel transferred to a storage facility. Like the common spent fuel pool I showed you that was all pixelated, which that one. They transferred something from the top of a building that don't exist to a building that was completely pixelated out. Oh, nuclear official confirms an explosion. Well, that was nice of you. Thank you very much. Can I have another? Does somebody really need a confirmation of this? Got to wait for TEPCO to confirm it. Or up to then, it's just a rumor. So there's the fuel pull up right there. Look. So when you look around the building, though, you see I highlighted a bunch of pictures. Look at all the debris on the roof, for instance. How can you have a pristine building on the inside, and on the outside it's covered in all kinds of debris and everything else? How does that actually work? Well, here's the building. That's what's left of the 190-foot, 19-story, 65-meter building. And here's what they're saying is at the top of that building, 150 feet above the building to your left. So, am I crazy? Am I just making a big fuss over nothing? No, don't say it. Don't say it. Dana's fear-mongering. You bastard, Dana. Fear-mongering. It wouldn't be funny, though, if all the species didn't die. So when all the species died, we did 6 years of research expeditions, and everybody's like, so what? I got a new microwave. Gotta watch the hockey game, bye. So here they are building this incredibly amazing, look. You'll never see this picture anywhere else. You'll never see this picture here or anywhere else. I got lucky. They put up a really high quality picture of the site way back in the day because they dropped their guard. They didn't do it anymore. I got to give them credit. And I downloaded this incredibly high quality picture of the site, and I was able to zoom in and extrapolate all kinds of pictures. And I did. And so the entire nuclear core injected into the environment. No! They're up there getting all the fuel out of the pole, Dana, for God's sakes, you fair-mongering. Yeah, but back in the day, they acknowledged it, the fuel pools, you'd have non-reactor cores ejected out of the buildings. So when you look at a building, you look at that. Right? And so this is these plumes. The reason the plume spreads out that way is because it's producing atoms, it's splitting atoms. The plume is full of fuel particles that are splitting atoms directly into the environment every second. It's producing more atoms. So the whole plume is replicating itself every second. Does that work for you? And it does that for millions of years, and it absorbs in every species into the biota, destroys the phytoplankton, destroys the bases of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestration chain. You know, the fundamental principles of life. Did I say something wrong? I got 3 people on my show. You bastard, Dana. You can't say that. Was I that awful? I only had 3 people on my show. I thought I was doing really good. Kind of lost in the moment there for a bit. Got to get back to saying nothing but gibberish. I'll get the views in. I was going to do a live stream and just like rapping shit on the stick. Get the views up a couple of thousand. Yep. I don't have that. Time is too important. The species are too important. Let's come back to the crazies. Let's digressing there for a second. Unit 3 explosion ejected a column of black debris high into the atmosphere. Column of black debris. Well, golly gee willikers, George. It was a column of debris into the atmosphere. Who talks like that? What's wrong with that person's head? Have they ever went to the bathroom without putting a suit on first? I don't know. These are questions I'd like to get answers to. This is reactor 3 detonating. This is a bit slow. And you're going to see the fuel pool at the reactor cores in a minute flying back down to Earth. Remember, slow motion. That's the fuel 8, 9 reactor cores falling back down to Earth. That was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. No, they got it all in the fuel pool, Dad. I seen it on TV. You're fair-mongering. I agree with you. Maybe I am fair-mongering. The report describes the material they found in filters as a glassy soot. But if you got radioactive fallout in such large pieces, you don't You tear your clothes off and you run away. And you don't come back. Fukushima worker happy. Aw, you got a happy guy at a nuclear meltdown. That's cool. We covered a story yesterday where the workers didn't even talk to each other on the buses or back at the compound where there was 4 guys with Geiger counters checking 3,000 of them for radiation and giving them the okay. You're okay. Go get your tea and your smokes. Happy described being covered in black soot. Holy gee. Happy is in the urine at a Buddha monastery as an unknown hero. Previous research papers found clumped fused microparticles of reactor material in fuel and NAMI. You know, where Toyota's growing rice stalks, taking the rice stalks from harvest in a nuclear wasteland. The food is being sent to market. They're going to take it and turn it into an oil, gas. God bless their hearts, boy. What wonderful people. See, if you incinerate at 3,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, you still can't destroy the anthropogenic man-made atoms. Just liberated back into the environment, pissed off, looking for something with replicating cells to go torment till it's gone. Nuclear got all the time in the world, and we don't got any. Nuclear will win this battle no matter what. Radioactive fallout has already permeated in everything out there. Everything out there is suffering Wigner effects, for goodness sakes. Every piece of metal got Wigner fatigue and brittlement. These reactors, by the way, were pressure explosions, right? So you need 4,500 one-ton water a minute to cool them. What do you think happens when you turn that off? Temperature goes up. I mean, they're already at 1,000 pounds per square inch. So that's why they blew up like that. Besides the environmental concerns, the report cited this about human exposure to glass microparticles. See, why was that blacked out? Look at this. Let me go back through this for you. Look. So you got that one there. We covered that. We covered this one. So all the paragraphs looks normal, don't they? That paragraph, happy, looks normal. I thought he centered them. But you won't realize it, but there's actually a paragraph right there, which is the best paragraph ever. Why did they... that's the hidden paragraph right there. I got a hidden paragraph. I was going to pee on my screen to see if it would show up, and I was like, no, that's crazy. Just highlight it, Dana. It's the same thing. It works better. I was going to piss on like you do with a hidden note. You take your urine and wipe it on it. The leading edge observation by nanoscience facilities presented here are extremely important. Yeah, so let's hide that paragraph. That's extremely important. Yeah, we'll just put a little black dirt. They may change our understandings of the mechanism of long-range atmospheric mass transfer of radioactive cesium. So that's British terminology. Only the British use that A. From the reactor accident, it's not an accident, you built it on a tectonic plates, 70 kilometers away from tectonic plates. It's actually the same as building it on tectonic plates, right? But they may also change the way we assess inhalation doses from the cesium microparticles inhaled by humans. Oh, what about the birds and mammals and animals? Indeed, biological half-lives, like they sequester in your muscles, your organs, your bones of all the species you included. All right, and they're electrically charged, and so they're organically bound, right? They connect themselves organically, and they assimilate themselves into your muscles, your bones, your organs. And you pulse energy at the speed of light, wrecking chromosomes and cells and DNA for the rest of your life, and the damage is for the rest of your life for each one of them. Your body tries to repair the damage every second. It can't do that, and attack the source. So now your immune system is compromised. You're more susceptible to pathogens and viruses that were normally harmless and innocuous and benign. Are now catastrophic because your immune system is compromised. And I have reports here that this can inflict up to 1,800 illnesses and diseases, not immune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses. Literally, is a catalyst for all kinds of diseases. And like, so the flu, your immune system is so compromised, you end up getting the flu, and it kills you because your immune system is so compromised, particularly for the elderly and the children, the vulnerable, the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society, and the immigrants who don't speak the language that are living on the edge of society with no nutritional, disproportional nutritional intakes. So they're more susceptible on top of that. The leading edge observation by nanoscience facilities presented here are extremely important. They may change our understanding of the mechanism of long-range atmospheric mass transfer. Well, like we know, it covers the whole planet in less than 20 days, symmetrically. And that's as bad as it gets. Imagine a snowstorm. When it starts, it never stops. It covers the whole planet in 20 days. It never goes away. It never melts. Might as well, right? Might as well be that. And then we would have a chance. If you go back and look at the 50s and the 60s, like the build your shelter in the basement routine, bomb shelter, they would often explain why you needed to build it thick, because of the way the radiation followed in the garden pulsed energy. So it's best to stay in your center room of your house for quite a while, maybe weeks. If you got to stay there for weeks, you got to stay there for years. It's radioactive fallout. It ain't going away. You are, but it ain't. So half-life of insoluble cesium particles might be much larger than that of the solutable cesium. So, like, why would you focus only on cesium when the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod is actually curium isotopes? I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying there's some serious danger out there. You're pretending over and over and over, symmetrically throughout the media, that cesium, and in this case cesium, which is the British terminology. So why did they hide that paragraph? I think that's a pretty important paragraph. I don't see why they got to do stuff like that. It's another story of the madness that is nuclear. I can't keep up with it. The madness of nuclear. Hang on a second. I just want to poke that there, but then I remember this one. Yeah, madness. Hang on, we get a kick out of this one. Here's another one from back. Think about this. Wait, give me a second. So think about this headline here. Rumors still blamed for Fukushima food problem. Harmful rumors is being blamed for economic woes among the food producers in a nuclear wasteland. It is a nuclear wasteland, see? Temporary radioactive soil storage sites hinder the farmers. Well, not that much, they're harvesting the food. Without their paper suits on, that means they're harvesting. Farmers harvest rice. Rice paddy in the foreground serves as storage site for piles of black plastic bags. Now, these are special bags that are meant to last several years with the exposures of the sun. And the Wigner effect, I guess, is probably not put in that equation. They're 1 ton or 2,200 pound bags, and there's 30 million of them. And they removed those bags were soiled from those farmers' fields. So you shouldn't be back in there for at least 1,000 years or so. No, they're back there growing food in a nuclear wasteland. The bushes are not, you can't decontaminate the bushes. You can't decontaminate the water. In order for water to get there, you got to run through a nuclear wasteland. It's just, it's so evil. It's so unconscionably evil and sadistically evil and unnecessarily evil. Slightly over 90% of those temporary storage sites lie on a farmland. Guess where all your food is coming from? You got to check your food before you bring it home, man. You don't want to. You can give your loved ones all kinds of heartaches, health issues. Let me find this. Yeah, so you have an invisible paragraph and the most important paragraph in the whole story is invisible. They may also change the way we assess inhalation doses from Nicesium. Surreal, isn't it? Inhaled by humans. Oh, really? You think all the species don't inhale that? You think the kids are not inhaling it? The humans. You know, the species, damn it. The lab rats we study without telling them they're lab rats. Cesium. Cesium to me is a derogatory term for, because you know it's come from the British industry and they're going to lie about every facet of it. And that's what the story is. But it is giving you useful information. Biological half-lives, insoluble cesium particles might be much larger than that of the soluble cesium. I can't get over the fact that that paragraph was hid away. Dirty, rotten scoundrels, boy. Makes it harder for the body to expel it. People who does that should lose their degree, right? People who blatantly lie about those particular attributes, shouldn't they? Shouldn't they be held to a higher standard? The academic community? And see, we cover so much material every show. And of course, because it's conference of parties going on, so any dissenting voices is illegal around the world. They own the planet, right? They own the oceans, they own our water, they own the moon, they own everything. And they're the people who are behind. The United Nations is the reason these whales, because they never provided the alleged checks and balances they claimed they did to the nuclear industry. That was an emaciated, that's a prize whale a little over 2 weeks ago. Here's what that one over there looks like would normally be considered a severely emaciated prize whale. I don't even know how to describe this one. I would never have guessed I would see something like that. It was alive when it came up. It was a low quality picture, which didn't surprise me, of course. That was in India, that other one. This was a week and a half ago, maybe. No, it wasn't a week and a half ago, but it was a week ago. This is a 2-year-old humpback whale. There's 7,000 extra ones that have died of starvation on top of the ones that have already died of starvation. This was in Belgium. A killer whale, like a deflated balloon. You can see the peanut head, shoulder blades, rib cage, the brutally skinny tail. That was 2023. This is 2025. This is in New Zealand. It's severe emaciations. So severe emaciation is becoming very trendy this year. We got another show ready to go. I know Friday's the last day for United Nations. I might come out and do the die-off show on Friday. So we talked about this over the years many times. You can go to my playlist and you can see there's over 50 videos like this that actual full-on presentations of die-offs and the research expeditions that we've carried out for many years. Starving humpback whale, yeah. It's not usual. It's unusual for them to actually be honest and say something like that. There's 26 whales, just killer whales washed up, and they had 6 media reports on it, and that was the end of it? I'm hounding those sections, die-offs, and whales, and birds, and how come that hasn't resurfaced? 26, the biggest die-off of killer whales on the entire planet. Clearly, 2 of them were emaciated, and as I like to say, if 2 are emaciated, well, they're all emaciated. If they're all migrating together, they're all starving together. And I tell you right now, they're starving. Like, what we're seeing is just holy shit stuff. This is true for all species, by the way. The amount of radioactive fallout is absurdly documented. It's absurd amount. The actual spike, this is modeled from the French government as a spike, and so is this of the Xenon-133, which is also full of 135, this is xenon and strontium, plutonium, and americium, and neptunium, and every isotope you can imagine. So they covered our whole planet over and over. It's been going on for 80 years. There's 1,000 fuel pools hemorrhaging it all day long into your environment from the spent fuel pools with no containment. There's more and more produced and released every single year worldwide. There's 1,000 major release points from the 1,000 fuel pools. That's a major poison to everything replicating cells on the planet. So we launched emergency research expeditions for 6 years. And from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, the species to your left are exterminated. That's why I get no views on my videos, because I do the field studies, and they didn't come out the way that they wanted them to. So therefore, I have to be banned forever and ever. Species to your left are exterminated. Would you rather have all kinds of beautiful clams and shells and species, or United Nations and no species? That is the question. The species are exterminated after 5 more years of going back and doing the research expeditions for 4 to 5 months a year. That was brutal, by the way. You can never forget it. You can never forget the fact the species are gone. Yee-hi! We made it. Made it through another one. I'm a little early night, thank goodness. Yeah, I deserve to be censored. I can't blame them. I was asking for it. I was trying to be a good person. Dee-dub-dub-diddle-doo-dee-da. My apologies, I got everybody off the regular schedule. I didn't want a late night tonight, and if I didn't do the show, it wasn't going to get done. Because that's how it is sometimes. My body's like, hey, we exercised again today, great exercises. So the exercise is 800 calisthenics. I was trying to do it all in 15 minutes. And so I had to bump that up to 20 minutes. I still can't get quite all of them in, but I'm pretty close. I do all of them, but I don't do the amount I want to. And the idea is to push myself till I can. I'm not trying to kill myself. I did in the sauna for 30 minutes. And then red light therapy for about 15 minutes. To start my day off every day, right? Wake up and get busy. Start off right away. No tea, no nothing. Just go for it. So the poll tonight is, should Conference of Parties 30 apologize for blaming carbon instead of radioactive fallout that is beyond the climate change worldwide? And I think the majority agreed with little old Dana. It's a win. That is a win. We're going to play nuclear exceptionalism. It's an anti-nuclear call. And it's telling you clearly that being anti-nuclear is cool. And I showed you why. I showed you why too. Here's some more whys. Have a great night. We'll see everybody on the next show. Toodaloo.
They said it was clean, too cheap to meter. Built the dome, then cooked the beaker. Said the rod was safe as sealed in drums, but left them leaking out of Idaho slums. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti nation proud. Ignore the barrels stacked in clouds. Promise stars in every socket. While curium settled in the market. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Chart is clean while whales rolled up beside the submarine. Blame the algae, blame the rain, but never trace the gamma chain. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Now the rods are rusting, the record spins. Mama warned them, too many sins. Keep your son, keep your lab coat pride, till you fix the waste you tried to hide. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done.
She doesn't want to go away. Sorry about that. Have a great night. The music, put a link to the music right there in the description. And a shout out to James, who donated almost 300 yesterday. Bless your heart, my goodness. Amazing. Loving it. Thank you, James. Good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Take care.